Good afternoon and welcome to my workshop here on the application of social identity theory. Most of you might remember me. I had the 22-minute long presentation. Y'all were probably saying some choice things about me for a while. My name is Mark Dixon Jr. And this is for Liberty University, the comms 522 with Dr. K. Looking at social identity theory, this is what I'm going to tell you. First, I'm going to remind you what SIT is if you don't remember the presentation. Then we're going to walk through the process of it. And then lastly, I'm going to apply it to something that I work directly with, which is men's basketball here at the University of Virginia's College at Wise. It's a sister school. It's not the D1 school. We're in the middle of that transition to go Division II. So let's get started. What is social identity theory? Well, it begins with identity, and when you think of identity, you think of self. So here, you think of who are you? Gerald Siegel wrote in the book, The Idea of Self, that by self, we commonly mean the particular being any person is. Whatever it is about each of us that distinguishes you or me from others, draws the part of our existence together, persists through changes, or opens the way to becoming who we might or should be. And that's Siegel, page 3 of that book. Now, when you look at SIT, there is one principle that is accepted by everyone, and Rice and Sprecher really are the ones that kind of draw that out. And what they say is SIT starts with the widely accepted principle that all individuals are motivated to maintain a positive self-image. Think about it. In everything you do, any choice you make, now most of us will say that it is for God, but it's because you have to have that positive image as a Christian. So looking at that principle, it's widely accepted. You want that positive image. You want the image that makes you look good because that's kind of what we're called to do. Nobody's going to follow you if you have this terrible image or they can't trust you. Y'all like that picture? What matters most is how you see yourself. A little cat with the lion. Just thought that was pretty funny. All right, so SIT, the basic idea, and I'm not usually a big fan of putting quotes, writing out long stuff on my presentations. So when you look at this, I have a lot of space for you to write or print off the 6 per page and you have one side where you can write on. But this really stuck out to me. The basic idea is that social category, for example, nationality, political affiliation, or a sports team, into which one falls and to which one feels one belongs, provides a definition of who one is in terms of the defining characteristics of the category. A self-definition that is part of the self-concept. And that was written by Hogg, Terry, and White in 1995 as they were studying social identity theory. So now we talked about SIT, kind of what it is. It's in the group that kind of defines you. You're in a group. You're defined by that group. You have put away your own identity, your personal identity, to form the identity of the group or groups that you're involved in. So now we'll look at the process. How does that happen? It's a great question. Thanks for asking. First, you start with categorization. And this definition goes to Saul McLeod in 2008. And categorization is defined as we categorize objects in order to understand them and identify them fully. So in order to identify them and understand them, we put them in different categories. We do things such as sports teams or Yankees fans, Redskins fans, whatever. And I just use those because those are my teams. So we move on to social identification. So first you categorize everything so that you understand them. We could have different categories, but think about it. You've got your Christians, your Muslims, your Buddhists, that kind of thing. That's categories. That's what we do. Then what we do is we identify ourselves with the ones that we believe in closely. And Tajfel, who really is the driving force behind social identity theory, says that part of an individual's self-concept which derives from his or her knowledge of his or her membership of a social group or groups together with the value and emotional significance attached to that membership. So that's where your identity comes in. Once you've categorized it, then you identify with it. Then you make your identity with that group. Now, there are 3 levels of social identification. There's superordinate, there's intermediate, and there's subordinate. Now, superordinate's very vague. We're all humans. Boom. That's what we identify ourselves with. Intermediate, where most of us are Americans, or whatever nationality you are. That's an intermediate form of identification. And then subordinate. So if you are American, and then you're below the Mason-Dixon line, you would consider yourself Southern. And there's a lot of characteristics that play into that, but that's what you identify yourself with. You're a Southern lad or a Southern gal, however you would like to pronounce that. Then after social identification, you move to social comparison. And social comparison is kind of described by Sabine Trepte in 2006 as we assume that we not only categorize ourselves and others, but that we evaluate the groups. So we evaluate the groups to get an idea of the superiority or inferiority of our group and of how reasonable and adequate our belonging to it is. We compare it with other groups, their characteristics, members, and benefits. That's it. That's what social comparison is. It's basic. You compare your group to other people so you can feel superior, so that you don't feel inferior. And that's usually why people will identify themselves with groups, because they feel inferior alone. And when you're alone, everybody knows that feeling. When you get out of a relationship or whatever, you dive into something, or you surround yourself with friends, because you need to feel a part of that group, and you need to feel superior to the situation you're in, or superior to something else for your own identity and for your own health. So what we just talked about, we're going to readdress social identity theory. I know you guys like to go over stuff. So social identity theory, we're talking about what were the things we went over. Categorization, we went over, that's you making the groups. Social identification, you joining a group that best fits you. And then social comparison, you comparing yourselves to other groups because you need to feel superior. And that's just part of the effects of SIT. Now, the way I'm going to apply this to my everyday life is I deal with UVA Wise men's basketball. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take SIT and I'm going to apply it to coaching. Okay? So there's different forms of coaching. But everyone has sort of the main goals. What's the main goal? To win. Okay? What is another main goal of coaching? To make players better athletes and people. All right, so now we're going to apply that. We've had a new head coach come in. The old one ruined the culture here at UVA Wise. Hadn't really been able to win. And ruined is harsh. I like the guy a lot on a personal level. But I digress. Okay, so we're not winning at all. And we bring this new coach in, and his job is to basically change the culture. Now, what he has to do is he has to get individual buy-in. He has to get the athletes, the players that he has recruited to buy into a system, to create a culture, and to create a category, UVA Wise men's basketball team. Okay? So the category, I'm sorry, that's wrong. It's not UVA Wise basketball team. The category is they are student athlete. All right? So they've already decided they're going to play college ball. Then their social identification is going to be UVA Wise men's basketball. And then who they compare themselves to are other teams in the conferences, other teams in the nation. So the reason I wanted to apply this, even though it's already right here, is because as a coach, you can use this theory to your advantage. You can create a product that will fit those players you're recruiting. And when they see your UVA Wise, it's not UVA. Every player wants to play collegiate level at D1, but not everybody can do that. So what, as a D2, you can do is create a culture, create an atmosphere in which that person can identify themselves with and join it. Okay? I want to use Nick Saban, the process, to kind of give you an idea of where I'm going with this. Nick Saban says, the more one emphasizes winning, the less he or she is able to concentrate on what actually causes success. That is the process. Okay, so what's the process? Developing a culture that someone wants to join. Getting them to join that. Okay? So they develop the group. They develop the core values that they want in their system. They live those values. And then they recruit those values. So they recruit players that will fit into their system, and so that they can identify themselves with this collegiate basketball team. Okay, when you identify yourself with a collegiate basketball team, what you're doing is you're a basketball player, but you're going to take one of those levels that we talked about earlier, and if you give me a second, there's those 3 levels that we discussed earlier: subordinate, intermediate, and superordinate. Okay, so superordinate, they're basketball players. Intermediate, they're going to play in the state of Virginia. Subordinate, they decided to play at the University of Virginia's College at Wise. So why? Why? And what am I talking about here? With social identity theory, what you have to do is you have to realize that a basketball player is looking for a group to be a part of. Okay, they're looking for that culture that you have built as a coach. Now, what you have to do is you have to mold that culture, and you have to mold that group to fit those players that you're recruiting, so that they will identify themselves as a UVA-wise basketball player, so that they will give you their all every single day. That's the whole point of the theory of them joining these groups, is to be a part of something that they want to be a part of. So you have to look seriously at what you're doing in developing your core values, what you're doing in living those values, and how you're recruiting those values. Because not only have you created a culture, but you're choosing which people, to bring in, and these people are choosing you as well. It's a mutual relationship. So once they figure out they want to be a part of this school, then they come here and they play basketball for you. So you create their identities when they come to play collegiate basketball. And it can apply to anything. We're just using basketball because I work closely with it. So let's talk about what just happened. We went over SIT. We went over the process of SIT. And then we discussed how it's relevant in coaching, in that you have to create a culture that somebody wants to be a part of, for them to play for you, for them to give you their all, and for them to have that mentality of playing as a team, is playing as a group, always having the team's back. And that's everything that goes into recruiting and into coaching as you move forward with your team. I want to thank you all for giving me your time. I want to thank you for, just bearing with me throughout this class, throughout everything we've done. I want to thank you for the opportunity to share this with you. I hope you enjoyed it. And it was under 22 minutes. So for that, you're welcome. I'm just kidding. God bless you. And I hope you have a great rest of your schooling, rest of your life, and that you'll follow what God wants you to do. This is Mark Dixon, and I'm signing off. Thank you.